Hello, this is my tutorial on simple arrays. I'm doing this tutorial because I am not a programmer, and forewarning, I'm going to sure use the wrong vocabulary. I might make some mistakes and stuff. What I can show here definitely works, because you'll see it here, but some of the terminology I'll say may be inaccurate. However, a lot of the things I see online are done by programmers when they give a tutorial or they explain something, and they explain things sometimes, to me at least, in a complicated way, and I have trouble following it. So I dug in deep on this and did my best to figure out what in the world simple arrays were, how are they different than associative arrays. But for this example, even though I kind of have to give you the contrast between an associative array, a simple array we're going to cover and basically show how you can create one, add some values, remove some values, and then release it later. And a couple tricks that I see I use a lot, even though I didn't really understand arrays until recently. But I would use them. Of course, you don't necessarily have to understand the ins and outs if you can figure out how to borrow someone else's script and use it. So there are two things that I have found incredibly useful. There's just a regular, I think it's called like an index loop, and then there's the for next loop. And both of those are very helpful when you're working with arrays. It can really give you lots of value to stuff. So first off, here's my template script, which actually I need to launch. And what I've done is I've broken up things into different subroutines. And so I have, I think, 5 examples of how you can load a simple array. Each one slightly different, and I just thought it's easier to actually give you the same, loading the same variables, the same array, I should say, just in different ways. It makes it easier to understand, because I see different examples online and I just get really confused, and actually putting this together helped me understand why I got so confused, because there are many different ways. I don't know if there's one is superior to the other, depending, of course, how many you have and if it's automatically coming in from program versus you're actually inputting it. So first off, we're going to start with loading one, and then obviously to actually show you what's going on, we need to display it. So for right now, we're going to stick with this no loop individual displays. And first, let's look at in this initial loading one. So that is this one right here that's going to launch. Notice the other ones are all commented out. I should have been pointing up here. So this one is the first one that's going to launch, and after it's done, it's going to jump down to this loop. I'm sorry, it's not a loop, but this subroutine. So first off, the simple array, first you need to declare it, and you can do that with these square brackets. Right, so I'm calling simple array is going to be my array. It's a simple array. I'm sorry, I should say simp array is my simple array, and I'm declaring it as an array. And I think it's actually also an object, because when you see it as a variable, you can't see any text. However, I still think of them as variables. I know that's not correct, but then I'm going to say, okay, for the very first item or key in this one, the value, and so we need to think of as on simple arrays, they all have keys, and the key is numeric, and the value can either be text or numeric. So that's why I threw in this for. Instead of having it first, second, third, and the word fourth value, I just wanted to demonstrate that you can have it as a for. And so when I run this, so this is going to run it. It's going to first declare the array, and then it's going to say add the simple value 1 as first value. The second item is going to be second value. The third item is going to have a value of third value, and the fourth one's going to have a 4. If we scroll down here, this is the no loop individual display values, right? So basically, I have 4 message boxes that are going to say value for key 1, right, is, and here's one way you can pull out the values. So I can say simp and then put in bracket 1, and you'll notice when I run this, so I'm going to run it. So value for key 1 is first value, and it pulled out, if we go back up to this one, it pulled out this text, because I said, what's the 1? And that 1 was right here. The 2, when I come back to my message box and hit OK, it's going to say second value, right? And that's because it's saying, well, what's in the brackets number 2, and the 2, even though this is the same array as on the other ones, but it's second value. The 3, now notice here, instead of having the brackets around the 2's, I put simp array period 3, and I didn't actually see this documented in the support stuff, but it clearly works, which is also why I'm not entirely certain this is still a simple array, if that works, or if it's just a fluke and that it is accepted, it's just not in the support tickets. So that's the third value. And then the fourth one, so here notice it's a 4, and actually if we did some math, you would see that that is a 4, not 4 with quotes type thing. And again, that is coming from right here. So that was our first example of importing it. Now I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to load the second one. And let me save and reload it real quick. Now it's going to load this one, right? And really, we'll breeze through this one, but the difference is we still declare it the same way, and then I'm using a period, right? So it's just like this, and it had to do also with how we were seeing it on the returning values. So it's simp array period 1 equals first value, simp array period 2 equals second value, right? And so these are the keys, and these are the values. And now when I run through it, it's going to run through and show each one of those, right? And so that was it. So we've done that twice. Now what I want to do is I'm going to change gears a little bit, and instead of having it as an individual message box, I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to show it it's going to be a simple loop with individual message boxes, right? So let's stick with this one. We're still going to load this one. Let me save and reload. Now when I launch it, actually, I guess I should have done something else in here to show it, but the simple loop individual message boxes, that's running this one right now. And we're going to see here is it just like in the other one, it's going to have 4 message boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? The difference being, instead of having 4 lines of text, it had 2 lines of text, basically. It was I said loop for this max index says, well, what's the highest key value, and forgive me if I have to pause because, like I said, I'm not too familiar with this, but the highest key value here, loop that many times, so it loops 4 times, and then it says, okay, because I didn't need to have brackets. If I had more than one line, I'd have to have a bracket here, then have this, a couple more lines, and closing brackets. But because it's just one line, it allows me to put it in here and just say, okay, loop this, and then this A index shows us, first time through it'll be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. So that's why here it's saying A index in simp array. So just imagine the first time it goes through, it's a 1, then it's a 2, then it's a 3, and then it's a 4, right? That's what it's doing. That A index, each time it goes through, it's iterating and increasing that by 1. Now, which is also, this is nice, you'll see these in a lot of examples online, but the one that I wanted to switch to, really, once you get past that, is in AutoHotKey, this simple loop 1 message box. Now what I'm doing here is this list, I'm creating a new variable with a period equals, and basically what that does is it loops through this 4 times, but instead of showing you 4 message boxes, it loops through them, appending this text with, of course, piping in the variables where they are, and a new line thing, new line qualifier character at the end of it, and then it'll show 1 message box. So now if I save and reload, and this is where I wanted to get to, because clearly this is a lot easier to see. So there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? First, second, third, fourth. It's exactly the same as this one. The only thing I did was I broke that line apart. I used the same loop. I just moved the message box down so it's not within the loop, it's after it. But of course I had to get this value out of the loop, and so that's why I put it here, right? So each time it goes through and appends this one, and this is a new line, and so it makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, and then shows it in 1 message box. So it's very, very handy. So now it'll be easier, I believe, to go look at these other ones. So let's turn off this initializing code of 2, and let's look at the third one. Save and reload. So you can also load a simple array this way, where instead of having them on all separate lines, so in note here, these I had to declare it with the brackets. Here, I'm putting curly brackets, and then I have a 1, so this is the key, and a colon, and then inside quotes, and then a comma, and then the 2 colon quotes, the value, 3, and same thing with 4. So I'm going to reload this and run it once, and now this is still, and I think actually on most of these, I should have maybe tied it to also the what's being brought in there, but it's showing you the same thing, right? It created the array and imported the same way, and then the fourth one, let's go up here, get rid of that. The fourth one here, so instead of having the curly brackets, I have square brackets, and I was trying to remember what I did here. So note, there is no 1, right? But when you don't have a 1 and I run it, it's going to default to 1 being first. Apparently that's the default in arrays, and this will save the time. And if you don't actually care what that numeric system is, if you always want to start at 1 and go up, this is a simpler way to do it, because you don't have to have it for each one of these, right? It'll automatically declare it. And then there is this fifth way, which I'm not going to go through and loop it, because it still shows the same way, but you put array, so none of the other ones had the word array in them. This one does, and then it has a parentheses, again, no number, but then I have the first, second, third, and fourth, right? So those are 5 different ways to declare a simple array. And of course, depending on how your data is and what you're doing, some might be better than others. Especially this, to me, is like easier for me to understand. However, if you have thousands of items, you don't want to do it in this. You want to set it up either with something like this or in a loop that'll iterate through it for you. All right. Let's move on to showing the for next option. So now we're done with all the initializing, so it really doesn't matter which one of these we're going to use, but I want to show some of the other examples using the like the for next individual message box. So a for next loop, if you've used them in any other programming language, and I know I did in junior high, I forgot most of it, but it's pretty awesome. The different thing, is like in VBA, when I've seen examples, I believe it says like for each something, which kind of for me mentally helps me understand it. But just remember, it's for I, and the I is whatever. It doesn't actually have to be anything. I could have put a Q here. I could have put a RHY, right? It doesn't matter. The I is just a placeholder for the keys or the items. Right, the value is going to be the second in. So, like up in here, here is the key or the item, and here is the value. So in a for next loop, it'll go through and it'll say for each item in value in the simple array, go through and do whatever. And the great thing about for next loops is you don't have to know how many of them there are. It will just go through each one of them without knowing how many there are. So in this example here, I'm still doing the same thing. So I'm using a for next loop, and so I'm saying for each iteration, and then here this is the title, right, for the message box. So it's nothing, but item, and here's the difference. Right, I put item I. I is because I is going to show me what key it is, has the value of, and then I put value because the value is what I put here. What you need to remember is just in a simple array. Basically, think of it as this is the key, this is the value, right? Whatever you want to call them, it doesn't. I don't think it matters. But when you run it, it'll do 4 different message boxes, and then when we switch it to the next one, which is exactly like the loop that I showed you before without the individual message boxes. So I've broken out on this example here, and this is the key and the values in the simple array, and here I'm just building this list variable again, and I'm saying, okay, loop through this however many times there are, and then display it in one message box. And so now when I save and reload this, it shows us one message box with all the values. And I'm going to stick with this one for the rest of displaying it, because it's a lot easier, and I've already included that in a lot of the other examples here. So actually some of them don't even need it, but let's just plug along here. So changing an array, right? Sometimes you want to, remove, I changed the order of this and I wasn't thinking it through, but let's start with the remove first. So I'm going to come up here, and I don't know if you guys use Skype, it's awesome. I'm going to leave that there. Actually, I got to disable it. And then I'm going to put uncomment out, if that is a way to say that, the remove. And what that's going to do is it's going to jump down here to my remove sub program. And it's going to say, first off, simple array remove whatever item 2 is, and actually removes the value, and it's going to store it in this removed value here. And then it's going to display, so we're going to do a message block displaying it, and then what we're going to do is, and I have some text here to help remind us, but it'll go through the for next loop and show you what happened. And so this is an interesting thing to me. Let me save it, reload it. So this was just removed from the simple array, so second value, right? And that's what remember, it doesn't say it's 2, it's the key. It's the value. And now when we go through the loop, notice what happens. Remember, we removed second value, right? So now we'll loop through the keys. Notice there are fewer indexes, and this is the important part. The keys have shifted. So it goes from, and this is why it's nice having them all here together, right? We have 1, 2, 3, but notice here it's first value, and then 2 actually turns into third value, because once you remove the value in key, the others shift up. And of course this is a critical thing, right? So third is now actually item 2, and 4 is actually item 3. And so it could really throw you off if you don't realize that those things are going to shift. And now let's go back and say, and you know what, now that I think about this, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but I'm going to say I'm going to insert oops, it would help if I saved and reloaded that. So the value of 2 is back, and now I've inserted it back in here, right? So let me scroll down to that. Sorry, that's a bad example. Here's insert. So I inserted 2, and then I called it 2 is back instead of. And so if we look back at our message box, now 2 says 2 is back. But it actually shifted things lower, right? Because I actually inserted 1 in between there. So 2 is back, but now everything got beneath it. What I should have done was just wrote over it. But let's come back up here. We'll turn off, and we're going to append. So I'm going to save this and reload it, and let's jump down here to append. And here, so here's append. So notice here, I didn't tell it what key. I'm just going to say simple array insert last, and it's going to jump back to this for next loop. So when I run it, notice it's last, right? And that's why I called it last, because it went first, second, third, fourth. Oh, hey, there's nothing at the 5th one. We're going to add it there, but I didn't know it was the 5th one, and it's nice because that way I don't need to know how many there are. I can just tell it to add it to the end. And then there's also a way to if you want a sparsely populated one. So, right, these are important also, because even though they are normally sequential in numbering, they don't have to be. Sorry, I need to reload it. Save, reload. Oh, that's why I undid the wrong thing. I'm sorry. All right. Insert sparsely populated. So let's uncomment that. Save, reload. Come on. There we go. So notice it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1,000. Right, has a value of way down the pike. And what I wanted to point out there was, I told it here in this insert sparsely populated, I said simple array insert at 1,000 way down the pike, right? And what's important about this is, and let's see if it comes back here. Next one. When you use that max item in the loop, prior loop, if you have a sparsely populated loop, the max item won't work for that count. So that's just something to make sure that if you are inserting big breaks in it, and you're using that loop a index, you need to figure out a way to get how many items are in your array. And all right, let's go in and let's put in the remove first to last. And let me scroll down and show you first, because actually that's a misnomer. It's not actually what we're removing in my example. So what I'd said was remove keys 1 and 2, right? And so it first removes the keys 1 and 2, and they need to be either both integers or both strings. But when we reload it and you see it, so now there is no 1 and 2, right? So it removed them, and then it's going to go back and insert them after. And so now they're 1, 2, 3, 4. We're back where we were. Now here's a couple other cool ones, I think. So we can say remove and leave order. Uh-oh. I must have changed, let me see, I must have changed the name of this here. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so notice here, so it's 1 has a value, first value, 3 has a value, third value, 4 has a value, fourth value, right? I removed 2. Let's scroll back down here. Remove index, leave order. So I removed 2, but I put in these quotes here, and somehow what surprised me is I would think that would leave a placeholder for the value, but 2 still, may not be there. But it actually keeps both of them. Which of course is handy if you don't want things to shift on you, right? So that's why you'd use that. And then the last example out of these is, what if you were looking to remove a certain value, right? Because it's easy to remove it when it's the key, but what if you want to remove a certain value? So what I've done, and I'm sure there's probably better than this, I wrote this, it's I use a for next loop, and I loop through each value, and I basically am looking for the certain text, right? And once it is that, then I say, oh, okay, take that A index and make it blank, right? So this is the if statement. So for each I in the values in the simple array, go through it. And once the value, instead of the key, right, the value equals second value, then do this next line. And again, I don't need to have the parentheses or the brackets, because it's just one line. And so when that equals value, it says, okay, remove whatever that index says, and then actually, because I wrote it this way with the quotes, it leaves it as a placeholder, right? So it keeps the order. And then I just loop through it, and then it actually goes back here and inserts the original one. The last two, and because this is a lot longer than I expected to talk, I'm just going to explain them right now. If you want to know if a certain key exists, you can put it in like this in a message box, and if it has a 0 when it comes back, it doesn't exist, and if it comes back with a 1, it does. And then this is how you release an array. And I will make all of this available. I'll make this script available on GitHub or on the forum. Thanks.